Hey y'all, list season is upon us, so now's the time for a good old review of the year in music. And let me just say that I am far too tired to begin this video gracefully, even more so having just gone through the typical stresses of moving apartments. All you need to know is that music happens. I listened to a lot of it. Most of it was good, and here are my 25 favorites. A couple rules to keep in mind. The first is that a song had to have been released in 2025 to qualify for this list. Feels like that goes without saying, but also, to emphasize fairness, I have given a 2-song limit to any artist featured in the list. So if you watched my top 100 and saw 2 songs from the same artist featured, well, sorry, but that means they didn't quite make my top 25. Alternately, if your favorite artist didn't show up at all, well, maybe they'll have 2 songs in this video. With that said, I don't feel like dawdling any further, so let's move right along to my top 25 songs of 2025.
I did it for my health. Could have really used some help.
For me, this is probably the most out of left field song of this entire top 25, which is weird considering the artist behind them. I've always enjoyed Thundercat, I've even seen him in concert, and Remy Wolf also had one of the very best songs of a couple years ago, so putting them both together was only bound to be absolute gold. I guess what I mean is that this is a type of song that I would never really think to connect with me so immediately. It burns bright, but also fast, and we're treated to 4 abstract minutes of feverish drumming across an array of funky bass riffs and pleasantly sour chords, while both performers follow the lead of these instrumentals as they sing of the quiet comforts of being alone. And yet also, at least to me, the song signals an homage to the jubilation and freedom that is the art-making process, which, let me tell you, having spent the year with generative AI being shoved in my face practically every day, this gave me a goddamn new lease on life. Every second of the song is packed to the gills with color, and it's one of the most viscerally vibrant tracks of the whole year. Not to mention that, well, I myself do enjoy some voluntary solitude, and it's nice to hear a song that absolutely indulges in the vibe. It's just a remarkably pleasant song, one that I could recommend to damn near anyone.
Be clever and you're honest. You make me want to be ready. I feel different now than I did before. I can see.
You know, for as much praise as model actresses Pirouette got this year, I also have to admit that I never completely saw eye to eye with it all. I mean, yes, it's a good album, but their debut was an immediate favorite for me, and this one never spoke to me as strongly, even after several listens. Still, even among the softer edges and more pop-shaped structures, they still know how to latch a song onto my brain and never let go. Cinderella is one of the stronger examples of this. The marriage of that thumping bass with their signature sheet metal stabs make for one tight, super cool experience, like a club banger pulled from the depths of hell. And it operates on a level of queerness that I personally identify with the most. The grimy, defiant modes of the experience. The glitz and glamour replaced with a scraping, bubbling horror that operates on its own stream of consciousness entirely. It's more like a catwalk, actually. Catwalk of consciousness, yeah. Tie this all together with one of the catchiest choruses of their career, and we have a hit. This is what dance music was meant to be, if I do say so myself.
So hard to find a purpose and I feel the pressure rifle under my sweater. The trumpet and the horns, the drummer coming, and this is it, I'm going down like a bitch.
Backwash's Only Dust Remains is not an easy album to sit through. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely great, but also, I mean, you should have watched my review of History of Violence by now, and that encapsulates the doom and bleakness of the record as well as I could ever hope to accomplish. What is also evident, however, are the leaps and bounds that the Zambian-Canadian rapper has taken in her production. Seriously, some of the best beats of her career here. And Ninth Heaven has been one of the most hypnotizing for me personally. Those agonizing vocals chopped up to resemble a discomforting presence occupying some space between operatic gestures and genuine wails of anguish. And the repetitive nature of these, they only strengthen the focus on life and death's cyclical nature, an inevitability that the rapper fiercely contemplates by way of her devastating anxieties. And yet, these thoughts are anything but crippling. Rather, they form a new life in itself, a determination toward fight and survival in the face of life's darkness and injustice. It's pretty incredible to witness. When all is said and done, it turns out that 2025 was the year that I really familiarized myself with the so-called windmill scene, that nebulous movement that birthed the likes of Black Midi and Black Country New Road. It felt like every month I familiarized myself with a new band or artist trying to pick up the pieces left in those bands' wakes, and making something new and creatively rich from the debris. The results are inconsistent, but I have really enjoyed the output of London's The Orchestra parentheses for now. Ultimately, one other single of theirs beat out Skins for me, but there's no denying just how goddamn cool this is. I love the way this band plays around with tension and release, the sinewy guitars and light as air drumming soon making way for a lush array of strings, a pretty typical jam session that suggests something darker and more menacing beneath the folds, which is all culminated in those moments of release, the fiery waves of emotional rush and fervor that make it all such a satisfying listen. Ultimately though, man, I'm just a sucker for intense bands with string sections, and this absolutely pushes all my buttons on that front. It's just good music, I don't even know what else to say. While I do appreciate the efforts of Cleveland's Beehive Ski Race and their admittedly strong and powerful debut record, it also might not be a record that works for me completely. I say that's more a shortcoming on my end than anything, but I will also say that their strongest moments on the album should not be missed. Just some absolutely killer post-hardcore here, emphasis on the post. And even after so many listens, I think that their closer, Heifer, is their grandest achievement yet. Just an exquisite blending of the kind of raggedness you expect to find from a good emo record, but with the greater emphasis on atmospheric turns that make for such a thrilling listen. Just as crucially, perhaps even more so, this works largely as a pained and desperate response to the genocide in Gaza. Not the last time we're seeing this theme in this video, by the way. And vocalist Nick Robles' performance is absolutely everything here, as they display a wide spectrum of emotions concerning the violence. The rough, curdled anger, as well as the quieter, much more impalpable desperation from having to stand as an onlooker to the destruction. It makes no attempt to make sense of the senseless. It simply stands and simmers in its emotional fury, and it's all the better for it. It's just powerful stuff.
Can I be the one to be embodied, well, anywho.
And here's a second model actress song of the video, the one I liked more than the big hit single, yes. I do have to say, where Cinderella was an undisputed so-called hit, a pirouette, the most accessible track to introduce and indoctrinate new listeners to the world of model actress, Departures feels like a track for me, a seasoned fan who mostly aches for the darker, more abrasive textures I fell in love with in the first place. And while this still doesn't measure up to the wild decadence of Mosquito, I do have to say it's something special all its own. I love the seductive dance that its staccato guitars and club beats perform with Cole Hayden's hushed, husky croons. And yes, we have the rapturous queerness, as the band balance between the erotic and the macabre with their instrument of choice. The yearning is absolutely on full display here, and the way it totally submerges itself into the world of drag with such discreet, full-body ecstasy is something I'm absolutely drawn to. To be queer is euphoric and grand, but also mysterious, seedy, by its very nature, defiant against the status quo that demands we feel and act a certain way about our bodies. On the contrary, it treats this transformation like high gothic art, and it is an endlessly fascinating experience each and every time. God, this band is so cool, and I continue to look forward to whatever wild ideas they have up their fishnetted sleeves in the future. See, there are a lot of aspects of good music I tend to treasure over others. Of course, there's a melodrama, which, I guess melodramatic could be one way to describe the nature of Power, with its thick layers of string elements embellishing the heady, often abrasive club beats that make up the backdrop of this track. There are movements to the song, from the wide sweeps of the verses to the almost tribal rhythms that make up those beat drops. They're so good. But for how goddamn solid of a record the BPM is, there needed to be a bit more going on for such a track to earn the title of album centerpiece, which this song undoubtedly is. And with that, we have the most crucial element of the nature of Power. It sounds important. Sudan Archives isn't just putting out another club banger, she's making a statement about love, sex, relationships, the natural components of paradox between lovers that make such coupling all the more fierce and fiery. And with real-life partner James McCall performing as his very complimentary voice in the drops, and on a smoky guest verse of his own, well, we've got the whole package and then some. Most importantly though, one of the best songs songs of the year has the word boner in its lyrics, and that just makes me happy. What can I say? I'm a simple possum.
Hungry eyes in the mirror like Corinthians. Uncanny Valley AI hit him with the hezzy screaming, carry my vision swim. Girlfriend whenever you...
God, Billy Woods is absolutely unreal. Definitely the hardest working man in this funny thing called the music business. He'll have probably dropped a new guest feature by the time this video is over. All jokes aside though, well, even before you transcribe the lyrics of Corinthians, you could probably sense the darkness leering beneath the horror movie chords of LP's instrumentation. And the unsettlement doesn't stop there. This is Woods' bread and butter after all. His mosaic-style delivery carries an inherent refusal to find the center, to focus in on one particular thread of consciousness at a time. As a result, the song feels wobbly, disturbed, fully surreal in its scrapbook-like depictions of those flashes of death, destruction, and corruption that absolutely saturate our everyday. And yet, through the rubble and disarray, we get Despot's verse, and the message rings loud and clear. The world is cruel, wicked. Billions can dangle above genocides while the wealthy continue to extend their sphere of influence, fantasizing about the day they can forever veer away from any trace of consequence. However, well, greed and unchecked power could only result in a crumbling foundation. It's only a matter of time before these very monsters eat each other alive. In the artist's own words,
surface to air, camouflage in the truck bed. On guard, best believe them crackers won't make it to Mars.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I do think that something was awakened in me when I reviewed Canary Yellow back in my 9th subscriber special. I will admit that before then, I never really paid much mind to Death Heaven. Black metal in general can be very hit or miss for me. However, Canary Yellow showed me just how great a black metal band could be if they pulled back the curtains of abrasion and allowed for a greater influence of intense emotional vulnerability. To this day, no song of theirs hits quite like that one, but man, does Winona get close. It's just massive. The build-up that introduces its sound is so full and enriching, with splendid drumming playing along the roaring tidal wave that is that guitar run. As someone who used to love shoegaze, but has grown rather fatigued with the state of the genre these days, this is a complete upheaval and reconfiguration of these textures in ways that appeal especially to current day me. It's like the song was handcrafted especially for me, I swear. And that's all before we get to George Clark's vocals, which are just eviscerating. It's the kind of song that seems like it'll burst from pure emotional glory at any given moment, yet manages to ride along the tremulous path of its run with absolute grace and beauty. I am just in awe. What gorgeous music this is.
I'll tell you what I think.
And it's time for the second Orchestra for Now song, because there had to be two here. And for all intents and purposes, the strip might very well be the signature song of the group, at least up until this point. It's certainly got the most personality, with that instantly familiar staccato piano acting as a guiding force for all else that plays above it. It's not really meant to inform the listeners as much as it is to take them on their particular ride of choice, and boy what a ride it is. I compared the sound to Ugly Organ era Cursive in my midway list, and yeah, that scans, but it's also way more leaned into the post-hardcore side of the pond, the rough and ragged qualities of the genre counterbalancing all the bouncy theatrical gestures peppered throughout. Above all else, well, it's a jam. And it's a jam in a very particular way I haven't quite seen replicated elsewhere, as indebted to the wildfire that lives within their sound, as they are prone to slowing down and simply allowing the twisted, torn edges of the atmosphere completely take over, until one final explosion bids us all adieu. Jesus, it was fun. Absolutely looking forward to how else this band develops their sound. We already have a few more singles under our belts. Now, let's get that damn LP going, y'all. Throughout this last year, I finally listened through La Dispute's album discography, which I probably should have done ages ago. And while I haven't really had the time to fully digest the entire catalog, their latest record really feels like their most dense so far. Certainly in its length, but also in its very rich narrative, which, again, is going to take me some time to unravel. I'm much more of a song person than an album person in my heart of hearts, so naturally, I tend to gravitate more toward compelling, concentrated experiences. With that said, man, is Top Seller's Banquet one of them. Just just a great journey of contemplative post-hardcore, the likes of which the band are always so great at. I absolutely love Jordan Dreyer's performance here, both in the more aggressive early verses to the quieter, brooding middle section, to the end where he takes on a sermon-like intensity to the escalating action. But it's the action itself that piques my interest the most, as the song plays around with visual text and movement to lay out a scene of rapture unexpectedly occurring at the titular banquet. I love when songs take on a cinematic structure to their lyrics, and this is as literally cinematic as it comes. This whole scene being given to us through the lens of a camera. I'd say more, but honestly, yeah, this is one you're gonna have to check out yourself. It truly is fascinating.
Es tan oscura, monumental, única, diversa, ruda y punqueta, la tocara y la moneda, la farra y sustancias buenas, toda la noche contenta con el...
Do you like fun music? I sure like fun music, alright. And if we're looking at this form of measurement specifically, well, there aren't too many other albums I listened to this year that quite matched up to Tate Quieto, the collaborative record from French prog outfit Pulcinella and Spanish cumbia group La Perla. Putting it simply, Tate Quieto sounds like a party, and there are so many solid tracks along its run I could have singled out. But I've picked two in particular, and man, Tabago sure is one of them. These hyperactive cumbia rhythms and frantic spirals of horns are like absolute drugs to my ears, and it seldom stops for a breather through the entire length of the track. As for the content, well, it's essentially an ode to the inner city, namely the city during the nighttime, when the real dark magic lurking behind the shiny exterior comes out to play. Even if you don't understand a single word of Spanish, you can certainly feel the sense of thrill emitting from these performances, the cutthroat atmosphere saddled with its own share of excitement, the vibrant waves of cultural unity and community, complete with scare chords and all. Putting it simply though, this just plain rocks. I love it a lot.
Keep are the letters and the photographs. In 2 days it's my birthday and I'll be 33. That doesn't really matter next to eternity.
It's so ridiculous. Adrienne Linker put out one of my very favorite albums of last year, one I still absolutely adore. And yet, I can't think of a single moment there that absolutely enraptures me the way the entire second half of Incomprehensible does. I am getting ahead of myself though. For as much as I truly admire the artistry of Linker's words and her solo work, a special kind of magic appears whenever she teams with the rest of Big Thief, and this song is just the latest in the line of their masterpieces. Perhaps it isn't one of the most musically interesting songs they've put out. It's satisfied just lingering within that meditative tumble of its instrumental. Nonetheless, it's the lyrics themselves that have spoken so deeply to my soul this year. It takes head-on the fear of aging ungracefully, an issue that is particularly intimate to us who are not cis men, due to society being misogynist as hell and all that. Nay, this song instead proposes we find empowerment in aging, look at the older women in our lives as inspiration for how strong and beautiful we can be as well. Most importantly, it wants us to just be for once in our damn lives, living beyond definition or comprehension, just doing whatever silly thing makes us the most happy. It doesn't tell me anything I don't already know, this much is true. But also, unlearning these unproductive thoughts that I and others have internalized through the years is a lifelong process indeed, and I'm always going to welcome any stepping stone I get toward this one true enlightenment. Look, it's a song that Crow will be reviewing in an upcoming video. I'll make sure not to do too deep of analysis on this one, partially because I don't want to accidentally steal any points that they might want to bring up, but also, Jesus Christ, this song deserves much more of a deeper read than a single 200-ish word segment will allow. I was already impressed from the whole of Iconoclast, but this was the one track that I knew needed a spot in my top 25 from the very first listen. It's in that militaristic drumming, the roars of hellish guitar, the tense stabs of woodwind, the dance they all perform to carve out this sprawling, utterly gripping post-rock narrative. And it's also in Anna von Hauswolf's vocals, and dear lord, her vocals. Not only are they just so proficient on a technical level, but the amount of control she has to follow the emotional ebbs and flows as they occur throughout this 11-minute track, it's just impressive, which is very crucial considering the spiral of emotion this undertakes, as von Hauswolf struggles with indulging in life's richness amidst the backdrop of death and destruction. And yet, after all this, it also ends on a relatively calmer note, with the artist attempting to find some comfort in the chaos, some meaning in her role as a part of the larger world defined by unspeakable pains and injustice. It's one of the most haunting tracks of the year for certain, but also one of the most rewarding, and I think anyone should be lucky to embark on the journey themselves. the second. There was no way that Ethel Cain's follow-up to Preacher's Daughter was going to quite measure up to the enormity of that album. I wasn't expecting it to at all, to be clear. I was expecting a record full of relative B-sides, and that's pretty much what I got. Predictably though, it's her equivalent to that album's American Teenager that really drew me in. I suppose that is a bit of a minimization of the scope of Fuck Me Eyes, but man is this just one of her best sounding songs, period. Quiet waves of synth lines reinforce the slowcore foundation of the whole record, sparkling from its very first moments, but embarking on a continually gorgeous build from then on out. After some of the quieter, more brooding tracks on the record, it really feels like a breath of fresh air among it all. And lyrically, it's such a fascinating bit of character study as well. As for my standard bit of reference hardly anyone can relate to, this feels to me like a theme song for Star, the central character of Andrea Arnold's American Honey, as portrayed by Sasha Lane. A free spirit who navigates her less than stellar circumstances with a femininity that is as sexually assertive as it is fragmented and emotionally hollow. And even so, we're hearing these descriptions from the point of view of an outsider, Cain herself, who envies the position of power she holds over the small town of theirs, an obsession that is defined by the projection of her own anxieties and insecurities. Like I said, just fascinating and also beautiful. The best of both worlds, if I do say so myself. Having said all this, I'd also like to give a nod to Nettles, which is also just fantastic. If not for my self-imposed 2 per artist rule, it would be a very sure inclusion to the list, so let's call that an honorable mention, yeah. Actually, since you made it this far in the video, let's leap into this top 10 with some more honorable mentions that missed my top 100 altogether, but I still think are well worth a nod.
To keep you alive, keep you alive.
I'll talk a little more about the Betts album in a future video, but I do think it needs more love. This was the third painful cut I had to make, but best believe it's some damn good indie rock all its own. Pretty much just a Latin ska punk track wrapped in progressive art pop clothing. This album is fine, but boy does this particular track get me so hype each and every time. Sometimes you need songs that make you feel like the dirty goth trash person you truly are on the inside, and this is it for me. More pop songs should be spooky, methinks. Again, this album is bad. I understand this, but I'm also easy to forgive, especially when the potential is really, truly there. This is probably my favorite off of Man's Best Friends. I don't know, it's just fun.
Then jumped off the pyramids.
I'm kinda scared to admit I'm afraid of growing up. No one
I get why this Joey Valance and Bray album didn't stick with the general populace quite like the last two, but, well, I'm not about to go on my soapbox about the rarity of this kind of sincerity in art and the respectability politics surrounding it. Instead, I'll just say that this is a sad bop, and despite what you've heard, you should give the album a chance anyway.
Quieren quitarme el río y también la playa. Quieren el barrio mío.
Again, I get why this didn't become as much of a hit as the others in my video, but I wasn't going to let this list season pass by without giving it my flowers. One of the most important songs Benito has ever done. Really worth digging into. Just want to be the first to say that Dove Ellis is going to go places. Expect him to have a pretty big 2026, y'all. I think it'd be pretty well deserved.
You're making me feel like a dog.
And the current man of the hour, ignoring the fact that this is technically from 2024.
So you know what's up. Double down and double up. I don't know where to go with us. Break me down.
An album full of features, and yet my favorite was the one he did by himself. I don't know, it's just so nice hearing Danny Brown so happy and free-spirited. Big ups to his sobriety era. It physically pained me to leave the song off the list, so here it is in this video. God, Sudan Archives is the coolest. Also check out Dead and A Bug's Life, or just listen to the whole damn album yourself. Yeah, that'll do. Alright, with that out of the way, let's continue.
heart is heavy, but it's never held alone. You keep it steady and you'll find your way home. A pointed finger and a kiss to my dome with a stare from the door that'll turn you ass to stone.
I am not the first to make the observation, but dear lord was it a great year for hip-hop, particularly the less mainstream strands of the genre, from the likes of artists like Backwash, Billy Woods, and yes, McKinley Dixon. Run 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 Part 1 was, for all intents and purposes, the pop single of Dixon's last album, and it's really fascinating to me that its sequel track opted for a different approach. Now we're veering closer to the melodrama, perhaps even the theatrical. With that said, alright, so here's my insane take about the song. This is the Kate Bush song. Alright, of course I'm not being totally serious there, but I think the fact that it makes me think of Kate Bush speaks to how rich and evocative of an instrumental this is. Jazzy drumming thickened with a truly gorgeous main melody, and the steady swells of horns that echo the equally as rich emotional arc of the lyrics. Running at just a bit over 3 minutes, it nonetheless contains multitudes, tracing along the complicated patterns of grief following Dixon's loss of a friend, and a tumultuous healing process thereafter. His knack at such poetry playing along such a punchy rhythm is just so amazing to hear. Definitely among the most exciting listens of the year. Keep on keeping on, good sir. Yep. You may remember that on my best hit songs of 2025 list, I called End of the World one of the most shining moments off the entirety of Something Beautiful. With that said, well, here it is, the actual crown jewel of the entire record. A loud and proud artistic statement of resilience and independence, if there ever was one. And, okay, true, we don't have the contributions of the master creators behind Always this time, and as a result, the song is much more lyrically simple, lacking in such direct, poignant imagery and emotional depth. However, well, that only means it's all the more focused with its goal in hand, which is to make an absolutely flamboyant catwalk filler about the imperishable-like nature of stardom. A topic that Cyrus, who has likely never known a time without fame, is surely very intimate with. Her performance is just magnificent here, and it really does feel like she is as thrilled by the bright lights and prestige as she is absolutely overwhelmed by the lifestyle, even to the point of tears. And these words are all the more emphasized by the rapturous backup by Brittany Howard, who, I'll say it again, is absolutely giving Jimmy Somerville a Bronski beat. Conjoin it all with the Blue Monday interpolation, and yeah, this song was practically made for me. Stunning, gay melodrama, all in one tight, glittery package, one that shines so brightly, as stars tend to do.
Slip, well, Emily, the noise that you make carries on to the
Every person who has ever lived contains stories. Not just the story of their life as they lived it, but also the stories of others' perceptions of them. The lingering nostalgia, both good and bad, that remains as soon as they're out of their lives. Racing Mount Pleasant's self-titled debut album is indebted to the memories the artists hold on to, the presences of people that have moved in and out of their lives, and the long-standing effects they hold. Emily is one of the most tragic of these songs. Through its quiet, tender arrangements, and even more delicate vocals, we're given the last moment of a woman who has taken her own life, though from the perspective of someone who has known her intimately. Her memory is highly romanticized by the dreamy melodies and full horn sections, but only due to how much the speaker aches in her absence. How she's left behind an impression of her past self, forever cursed to haunt the memories of those who are fortunate enough to know her. But I think what is most fascinating here is that it's not a song that's as dark as a topic would typically demand. Rather, there's a mellow artfulness to its gestures, an implication that we must allow ourselves to hurt, but also experience the rest of our lives fully, utilizing such deep memories as stepping stones along the way to the bright future that awaits us all. Jesus Christ, it's just beautiful.
So the last resort, so ladies and gentlemen, take a minute to settle and happy to be the guest of the element. Just for the
Oh, what do you know? It's a song I already gave a pretty thorough review back in my 10 subscriber special. To be fair, I hadn't yet decided by that point which track from this album would come out at the top for me. I was also really entranced by Dissociation for a while, and also Seventh Heaven, of course. But ultimately, History of Violence was the one that shone through the best. It's just so clearly got one of Backwash's most compelling performances, along with being a more complete sounding song lyrically. I'll go ahead and suggest that you watch that review, but in case you don't feel like scrubbing through a 4-hour hour-long video, it's just really damn powerful, both in the examination of the rapper's bleakest, most discomforting personal introspections, as well as the lambasting of the Western world's role in the mass murder occurring both overseas and on the home front, all in the name of that endless pursuit for shameless power. It's thematically rich, sonically tremendous, and quite simply, one of the very best songs of Backwash's career. Do not miss it.
Up TV, move, fuck me, just move. I thought we was on some turnover, a new leaf too. I stretch my limbs out like man, it's so woo me, let's groove. I seen it happen, HD.
Released in 2023, Double Trio was widely speculated to be the final hurrah for the group formerly known as Injury Reserve. Recorded in the recent wake of Steppa J. Groggs' death, the song is brilliant, but also hazy, disjointed, an unsettling representation of grief in its freshest, bleakest form. Double Trio 2, then, is the other side of the coin. Nearly 2 years separate both singles, a whole lot more life has been lived, and as such, it feels like both songs are divided by oceans. Richie's lyrics make it pretty clear that there's still a good deal of healing to be done, but Parker Corey's production brings a different soul to the track. It vehemently refuses to indulge in the gloom, and instead is triumphant as hell, with its thick walls of jazzy horns and psychedelic synth patterns forming a mountainous atmosphere that is, quite simply, so rich and prosperous. When I say that rap music was on a whole other level this year, I meant it. Even so, I don't think I ever expected the duo to release something so liberating and life-affirming. It still contains a fair bit of the chaos for which I've come to know both artists through the years, but the chaos feels so much more controlled, matured by the passing of years. It's the signal for a new beginning, one that's certainly colored by the trauma of the past, but also strengthened by the experience. And this is exactly the kind of vibe I've come to look for in my music. It's just incredible, and I'm beyond excited for anything else they've got cooking. Like I said earlier, pulling out just 2 Tate Quieto tracks from the entire fantastic run has been my personal Sophie's choice. I'll talk more about the album at a later time, hint hint, but every track here just shines in its own way, and you shouldn't confuse omission for lack of worth in this regard. Thus, well, why not kick off the top 5 with the song that was most stuck in my head this year? Chicha Rachera is absolute possumcore from top to bottom, with its slick tropical rhythms working along some tight horn instrumentation and cool, casual melodies, which all make for a hell of an infectious romp. It doesn't really have any single standout moment, but that's just to say that every second of this has grabbed me by the horns and utterly refused to let go. This is all just so awesome. As for the lyrics, well, essentially, it's about getting wasted. Chicha is a fermented drink of South American origin, and the Chicha Rachera is a vendor of this drink. We're basically instructing her to keep the drinks pouring and don't stop until the sun rises. And, well, yeah, it sure does sound like it's eager for a good time, just so lively and full of color from start to finish. Wrap it all up with a fantastic little keyboard solo, followed by a nifty sax solo, and yeah, we have a party jam for the ages, one that I simply cannot stop replaying for the life of me. Hell yeah. If you had asked me just a few months ago, I'd have probably said that this was the best song of the year. Not because the remaining songs above it were all released most recently, that's actually not true at all. What I mean is, well, Look Down on Us by Maruja is pretty much everything I love about a song of its kind. A simmering 10-minute build, strong, aggressive emotions, earth-shattering saxophone arrangements, confrontational lyrics, all set over one of the most cathartic buildup of tension and eventual release I've heard in any song this year. I greatly admired it from listen number 1, and listened to it more than most tracks from this year, I think. At the same time though, it's also the one song that really grinds you down, particularly in the case of vocalist Harry Wilkinson, whose lyrics about the degradation of humanity in the face of monstrous power, greed, and systematic violence of the upper class, those who look down on us, well, it lacks not a bit of subtlety at all. And that, I think, is one of its greatest qualities. Perhaps it's a bluntness that doesn't completely land its punches over the course of the album, but for this one song, it absolutely works. The entire middle section is one of the greatest feats of the entire year. A bleak expanse of cinematic post-rock gestures that, nonetheless, manages to work its way back to a productive, forward-thinking mindset. Is it the most nuanced depiction of such twisted thoughts and terrors? Not even a little bit. But for this particular moment, in this particular year of horrors, it manages to stick the landing pretty impressively.
Where it goes, backwards home, to where you're staring at the water below. What would happen
happen if you fell down the slope? If you drown, or would you?
As I've said with the last La Dispute entry, it's the condensed experiences of singular songs that tend to reel in my interest the most, versus the longer patchwork journeys that come with listening to albums. I love albums, don't get me wrong, but if you think that an isolated song in itself can't offer a whole entire range of thought and emotion and experience, well, you haven't heard Environmental Catastrophe Film by La Dispute. Typical for the band, the song is gritty, brutal, heavy in its meditations on death, regret, and the ever-flowing movement of time itself. And we're also back in cinematic territory, as shown by the literal title. The narrative doesn't spell it out quite as literally here, but the movement of the imagery, as well as Jordan Dreyer's impassioned performance of such, really elevates the material all the more. Over the course of its 9 minutes, we get flashes of history and community that all tie into the small rural town at its center, and it's an absolute ride, with not a single second wasted or left to the weeds. And I think that's why I've enjoyed specific parts of No One Was Driving the Car more than the entire sprawling, cluttered, downright suffocating experience of the whole album. This song spells it out as succinctly as necessary, with all the rage and venom fitting for its role as a soundtrack of what is living through the mid-20s. It's absolutely pummeling, an incredibly sharp culmination of the band's career up until this point. Necessary listening, for sure.
Matter what he told you. Oh brother, it's a hateful life, and I got two choices, either left or right.
Work sucks. I know. Hell, I think we all know. So leave it to Marcus Brown to make what I consider to be the working class anthem of the year. I'd already been so fascinated by his unique, druggy take on alternative R&B with which he'd made a name for himself, but his latest album, The Passionate Ones, proves that he can transition the sound into more explicit dance music territory and be just as rich and fascinating as he's always been. He's got such a great way of layering all these different sounds atop each other, with the erratic vocal samples and cold synth lines being particular highlights. And it might just be that this main key riff reminds me a hell of a lot of Scissor Sisters. Perhaps it's that association that strengthens my love for it on a purely visceral level, but in any case, it's a total jam. And the lyrics are all too familiar for many of us. The work-life imbalance, trying to find time for interests, hobbies, a grander purpose, all when you're just so damn tired all the time. But he also brings some optimism to the tale, urging listeners to keep on keeping on amidst such tiresome trials. Because it will be your time to shine one day, that's for certain. And as a side note, I saw him in concert earlier this year, and man, did this particular song bring the house all the way down. He's truly one of the coolest, most promising musicians we got out there, and I'm beyond excited to see what else he's got on his plate. First of all, if you notice me miscrediting the song and band in my midway list, well, no you didn't. But anyway, yeah, here we are. Racing Mount Pleasant by Racing Mount Pleasant from the album Racing Mount Pleasant. And as to why this tops my list, well, I wish I had a more satisfying answer other than this was the one that just happened to speak to me the most. The one I most found myself reaching for and continually being enthralled with each and every play. The album is great, but this is such an easy standout. The most powerful and complete snapshot of the entire record. I'm also aware that much of my love for this might just be residual fondness for the similar sound featured on Black Country New Road's Ants From Up Here, an album for which I found I had much more nostalgia than I thought. The cycles of horns and string arpeggios definitely pointed in that direction, and yet I don't think there's a single track on that record that absolutely enlivens me quite like Racing Mount Pleasant has. The song, I mean. It's in the gallop of those drums, the understated arrangements, the half-spoken vocals that feel on the verge of falling apart at any moment. That is, until the rest of the band joins into a communal chant-along of its hook. And much like with Emily, it's a song about the pain of memory, though this time it is straddled with a newfound lease on life, and understanding that new beginnings are necessary to continue living and thriving in this crazy world. It's corny, sure, but with the year that I have had, I found myself reaching more for those stray pieces of vulnerability and honesty while I can still find them. And this has been one of the most special ones. That much is certain. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.